This is Ray Varner, class of 2010, with the Living Legacies Oral History Program, with the women of, in particular, the Women of Randolph-Macon Oral History Program. I'm here today in Winchester, Virginia, at Partlow Insurance, and I'm here with Leslie Boyd. She was known as Leslie Edwards at her time, Randolph-Macon, and she attended the college in spring of '72, only the spring of '72. She's associated with the class of '75. Also here today is Sarah Hendricks. So. All right. Hello, Leslie.
Hi, Ray.
All right. I'll start out with where did you grow up?
Grew up in Winchester, Virginia. I graduated from Hanley High School in 1970, and born and bred. And I'm working here. I've been working here at Partlow Insurance for the past 10 years, and it's a nice area. A lot of Randolph-Macon people in the area too.
All right. So. Since you attended in the spring of '72, and you didn't, did you attend in the fall?
No, I did not.
All right, but when you were thinking about going to colleges, what kind of college did you have in mind?
Well, I was interested early on to become a physical education major, so that I wanted to pick a college that had that major. So I started at Longwood College in the fall of 1970. And attended there my freshman year and first semester of my sophomore year, and then decided that I wanted to be closer to my fiance, and went in January, I guess it was J-term of 1972, and talked with Ira Andrews about coming to Randolph-Macon, was accepted, and started that spring, or I guess it was February, right after J-term ended, and moved into Randolph-Macon Mary Branch dorm on the first floor. I'm not sure about the name of my roommate, but I remember who she dated. So, and I only attended Randolph-Macon the one semester because of I wanted to continue as a phys ed major. I went through a phase and then decided, yes, I did want to be a phys ed major, and transferred to VCU that fall.
All right. So do you remember that conversation you had with Ira? Do you remember anything about it?
I don't recall much of it, but I do remember that he was the one that I talked to. My mother and I sat in his office, and I wish I could remember, but I don't.
So did you visit the campus before you decided that, hey, I want to go to school here? Had you ever seen the campus, or?
Oh, I'd seen it many times. Yeah, like I said, a lot of people from Winchester came to Randolph-Macon. I knew them. I believe I came down for Camptown races to visit. I believe I was in high school, but Randolph-Macon did have a lot of good concerts also. It was known for its great concerts, so it was social and academic too.
So you came for concerts at Randolph-Macon, but I guess they were just open to the general public, I guess? Or?
I went with my fiance at the time, and or a date. Yeah, you could get tickets. And I'm trying to think of where the concerts were. If it's 40 years ago, but I know Chicago was at Randolph-Macon, and there was one other large, very well-known band. And I don't know if they had been to Richmond to give a concert and then came to Randolph-Macon, but I'm not sure, but it was a great place to go. And of course, I have to say the fraternity life was pretty good.
Was your fiance in a fraternity?
Mm-hmm. Yes, he was.
Which one?
He was a Lambda Chi.
So how much time did you spend at the college before you decided to come to so obviously you came for parties or whatever, I guess.
Parties and to visit him. Mm-hmm. Well, after we got engaged, I guess, I was probably there every weekend, or he was at Longwood, or but a lot. And like I said, I believe I came down a couple of times when I was in high school with a bunch of girls, and we went to Camptown races and or visited people. So
Did you come down in high school? Was he your boyfriend then when you came down for high school?
Could have been another boy, I'm not sure.
Good for you.
I don't know. But I know that there was a large group of girls that came down for Camptown races, and that was also a big social event in the spring.
So literally you just got a bunch of high school girls together and you would come down.
And stay in one room in a hotel. I mean, there were probably 5 girls in a bed. I mean, it was, it was a different time.
So in Ashland there,
I don't know, yeah.
would you visit the college? I mean, not visit, but would you go party, I guess, at the college? I guess you would go to the fraternities when even, or
We tried, I think. I'm not sure if we were allowed, but, or we, if there was somebody attending, one of the guys that somebody knew, we'd go, hey, how you doing? And hang out in the room, because it was fun.
Sure.
It was something to do. I mean, Winchester is Winchester. It's kind of small. We have Shenandoah University now, but at the time, Shenandoah was very small. I think even smaller than Randolph-Macon. So there wasn't much to do here.
So you were at Longwood, right? Is that where you met your?
No, my fiance was from here. He was from Winchester also.
Right. Do you remember? So male Randolph-Macon students coming to Longwood, because we heard since it's an all girls school and all.
Yes. Longwood is only an hour and a half from Randolph-Macon, and I remember a couple of football players coming to pick up. I had a date with one of them, and my roommate had a date, and they came, they drove over, picked us up, we went to dinner, and partied a little bit, and they went back. So it was,
Longwood's so close to Hampton, Sydney. Was there, were you know what I mean?
Competing,
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, were your
yeah, I mean, you
allegiances
did
in
both.
Sydney?
I mean, Longwood was all girls too.
Uh-huh.
And we either went to Randolph-Macon or we went to Hampton City. We went to University of Virginia.
But you didn't have a particular allegiance to Hampton City because you were so close?
No. No.
I've heard stories of girls. I guess they would go by the truckload down to Randolph-Macon and stay long. Do you remember any girls doing?
Truckload, but I think there were a couple girls. Now, I'm not real sure if I was in high school. I remember going to, and it could have been in college. And you know what? I believe I was in college and was at at Longwood. Went to Camptown races, and some girls from Winchester came down, and they didn't have a place to stay, so ended up staying with us in the motel. That's kind of jarring my memory a little bit, but that's the story. Yeah.
So, I mean, everybody came to Camptown. It was all the colleges and everything, right? It wasn't just
Huge social event.
Yeah. So what was Camptown like?
It was a big hillside picnic and party. People brought food and drink, and we watched the races there. There was a racetrack, and I can't remember the name of the farm that it was on, but there were hundreds of people there.
It was mostly college students too, or was it?
Mm-hmm. But adults too, that came from Richmond. I remember some people. Actually, it was Congressman Robinson that came. I remember seeing he and his family there, and of course he was in Richmond. So everybody knew about Camptown.
Yeah. I mean, were you there when the Streakers were there? Did you go that year? No.
Maybe. But it was the time of Secretariat too. So that was and we knew of Secretariat. The famous racehorse that came from a farm close to Ashland.
Owned by Randolph-Macon.
Yes, that's what I heard. Yeah.
So, so you're a Longwood, and I guess you kind of mentioned that. I guess you had your fiance at Randolph-Macon, but you mentioned that maybe you wanted to do physical education training. But so when you're at Randolph-Macon, what were you?
A general. I probably decided I was going to be a business major there, so I took freshman English, logic, religion with Dr. Seymour, and what else was it? English, logic, psychology, and religion. Those were the 4 courses. So there was general, basically, at the time.
Do you remember when you heard that Randolph-Macon went co-ed? It would have been your freshman year at Longwood.
I think so. But of course, my fiance, said it was a great idea. It wasn't a real long distance relationship, but it was going to be easier with me closer to him. And I think at one point I could have stayed at Randolph-Macon and finished, but he was a year older than me, so he was a class ahead of me, and he was finishing up, and he got a job in Winchester, and then I ended up getting a job in Winchester, and that's why we left Ashland. Now, a couple of years later, he got a job in Ashland and coached football at Randolph-Macon. Yeah, and so we lived right next to the president's house on Caroline Street. So, yeah.
That house is now going to be the alumni house.
Oh, is
actually.
it? It's a lovely house, yes. And we had our oldest there with us, and he would go to football practice with his dad and run in between the football players' legs, and some of them would babysit him and things like that. So I have a lot of good memories. And we lived in the married dorms starting the summer of 1972. Did you all know about the married dorms? They were there were 4 apartments, I believe, that were rented out to married couples that attended Randolph-Macon.
Were there must have been other married couples?
Yes. And we had a nice group of people that we, were friends with we were there a full year. And so.
Was it different being a married student on campus? I guess it's a little bit different. So what was that like compared to?
He would bring home friends for dinner, but he had, I think, the best of both worlds because, having his own apartment and a little bit more privacy and a little bit better, situation. But he had his friends still at Randolph-Macon. And being situated right behind all the motel dorms, he was right there with them.
So this is the time. So you weren't a student at the time, I guess. The way that you're talking. Okay. All right. So you left after that, and you went to VC. So, but you lived on Randolph-Macon campus. So for the whole year, I guess. Okay. So that was the reason why I guess you left. You mentioned that you went to VCU was because, that they offered what you wanted, whereas Randolph-Macon, being a small liberal arts school, didn't have that. So did you still participate in things on campus with them, or
basically went to all the football games, and I believe we went to baseball games too, and attended fraternity parties. Just people came to visit. It was a small community as it is today. Just everybody knows everybody, and I would say I knew a lot of the guys, and kept in touch with them. So.
Did you ever make any close girlfriends that you stayed for? Because it's almost like if you were living on campus, it's almost like you were still a Randolph-Macon student, even though you were taking class. You know what I mean?
Yes, but I have to say, I really never was close with the women. I remember my roommate a little bit, but I guess because there were so few of them. I just don't remember them.
Were you a little sister of Theta Chi?
Lambda Chi.
Oh,
No.
sorry, Lambda.
No.
Sorry, I get the Chi's mixed up. Sorry. So, all right, but I mean, I guess you did do things at the fraternity and everything else, and your husband at the time was a brother there. So, it's so the married dorms. They're, I guess, behind, I guess, the motel dorms. I imagine so.
They're no longer there.
Well, I think there's still a couple, but they're just like how they used to be, in that if someone doesn't fill them up, then they. But I don't know if I mean, there aren't hardly any married students anymore, so
Right.
that's.
Were there a lot?
It's a different time. I mean, I had a lot of friends that got engaged in college and got married either while they were in college or right after they graduated. So my age group got married in our early 20s instead of where I think most couples get married in their late 20s to early 30s now. It's just so. And, the women back then never really talked about careers. It was who you're going to get married or when you're going to get married. That was a big priority. Oh.
So even though you were just at Randolph-Macon for a little bit, you only took those 4 classes or whatever. Were there any professors out of those that really stood out? That were.
She was wonderful, very intense. My logic professor, Offenbacher, I believe. Offenbacher? Yes. It took me a while to figure out what logic was, but I finally figured it out. I don't remember who I had for English. It was an older professor. And I believe I had Dr. Kagi for psychology. And I don't believe he was there very long. So, but everything was very more writing than I was used to, smaller classes, more research papers. Of course, being a phys ed major, I took a lot of courses, but I didn't have research papers to do on the various sports. It was participation and learning how to officiate, things like that. So, learning the general rules.
I mean, when you went to VCU, were there lots of women in that particular field?
Oh yeah.
I guess.
Oh yes.
Okay, so what did you said that what did you do after graduation again? So you left. I guess you didn't graduate from VCU,
Right.
but you left and you.
We moved back to Winchester, and he got a job at Hanley, coaching and teaching. What is sociology? Something at Hanley, and I worked for Frederick County Parks and Recreation Department in their playgrounds and set up programs and different things like that. And we stayed in Winchester for about 3 years, and then he went on to be a graduate assistant at Shippensburg and coached football. And then we ended up back at Randolph-Macon, and he was coaching and teaching at Patrick Henry High School. He was a guidance counselor.
Could be sent some of those kids to Randolph-Macon.
Smart ones. Yeah.
So
That's,
But was
And-
going back, did you run into teachers? I mean, it's such a unique experience. I mean,
well, not really. We had some friends that we caught up with various places, but it was mainly being friends with some of the football players and just having a good rapport with them, and the coaches too. Coach Keller was the head football coach, great guy, and was close with his family and did things. Now, I also, when I came back to Ashland, I got involved with the Ashland Junior Women's Club, and that was fascinating.
there's kind of like faculty wives in that, aren't there?
We did, big projects, and met a lot of people through that club. So
Did you ever think about going back to school because you were in Ashland, maybe going back to Randolph-Macon? And
I did, but we had our oldest at that time, and it was just financially we couldn't do it, and time-wise, and I was, everything sort of, I had my priorities with my children and everything. So
completely understandable. Did you? So I guess you were right back in the Randolph-Macon community because he was a coach. So how did you stay in contact with the college in that sense? So I guess after after everything. So with that, so start out with that, I guess, and then move on.
well, I'm not sure what. While we were living in Ashland, we were close to campus, and we met a lot of people through coaching. He had, different teams, and also we had a really good friend, Jim Blackburn, who lived in the blue house on the railroad tracks across from the football team. He was one of the football coaches. We were very good friends with them, and he had some kind of position with the college in addition to coaching, and I can't remember what he did. He ended up going to Hampton-Sydney and being a dean or something. But just our relationships with people that we touched or saw every day, and through the Junior Women's Club. And neighbors. I was invited over to the Payne's house, Dr. Payne's house, a couple of times, and got to meet them when we were living beside them. It's just a small college family, like I said before, and a nice community.
So after that, I guess did you move away eventually?
We stayed there for in the area for 2 years and came back to Winchester.
Okay.
And we had another one on the way, and it was financial. We came back to Winchester for jobs.
And what did you do?
I stayed home, but he had ended up with a company here in Winchester.
Okay. And then,
it was money related.
What did you do after? What?
I basically had stayed home with the children for a few years, and then went into the school system as a teaching assistant, part-time, and stayed there for about 14 years as a substitute and teaching assistant.
What age group?
It was all kindergarten through 5th grade.
Okay.
I love the little ones.
The little ones.
The little ones. Yeah, it was a great. But I had my summers off.
Yeah. Get home at the same time as the kids get home.
And took care of kids. Sometimes people would call and say, "Could you, after school?" They were teachers and they needed somebody to watch their kids until a certain time. So I might have babysat kids also.
And then after that,
Let's see. After that, I guess I started working here. So.
Did you ever go back during this time? Did you ever go back to the campus?
Oh, yeah.
And did you return for homecoming?
Oh yeah,
And
all the time.
If you-
Well, my boys were there from.
Okay.
Tripp started in '96, the fall of '96, graduated in 2000, and Chris started in 1999 and graduated in '03. Both business majors. They're both living in Richmond, and have tons of friends. We're both Lambda Chi's, and both and they're both in the financial. Tripp was a baseball player. He's a pretty good baseball player.
So you kept on going down. It's just
We've just always been down there. Yeah, I go down there at least once a year to see a football game.
do you ever make it out to the Hampton-Sydney games?
If they're at home, sometimes, and if I'm brave, yes.
Yeah, I guess it is a little.
It's okay. Yeah.
I was just thinking that because you had that connection to Longwood, and you were kind of down there in that area and everything. So I didn't know if you ever went to Hampton-Sydney for.
It was big rivalry. It's always been that way. Always. And if I hear of somebody that goes to Hampton Sydney, I'll say, "Oh, that's too bad."
Oh, it is a shame.
It is such a shame. And I'll look at them funny, like, "What's wrong with you?"
So the schools, I'm assuming that you associate, that you have the most affinity towards Randolph-Macon as opposed to Longwood or BCU.
Oh, yes. I don't think I've been back to Longwood more than a couple of times. And that school, of course, has changed also, and they're co-ed. And VCU was a large place. I felt sort of lost there, too.
I mean, you lived at Randolph-Macon.
Right. I mean, it was totally, and I don't know. I would have done things a little bit differently.
Do you think this is just, so you found out that school was going co-ed, why didn't you come that first fall? You just hadn't, you still were thinking you wanted to be a phys ed?
I knew I wanted to be a phys ed major,
Okay.
and I just knew, yes.
I guess Longwood, they do more of that kind of education. I guess
It was a teacher school.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's a good teacher's school. And of course you can and get certified in teaching if you go to Randolph-Macon and take extra courses to teach, I believe.
Yeah, with the education minor. So you basically you still can't get a major in it, but you just do whatever you're doing and then you minor and then you get the certificate along the way. So yeah, is there this is a hypothetical question, but since you had two sons that was Randolph-Macon, but if you could give advice to an incoming freshman who was incoming into Randolph-Macon, or you could even think of it as a transfer student, since you were a transfer student. So what advice would you give them for their time at Randolph-Macon to make the best out of it?
Well, to make as many friends as you can, to get involved in as many activities as you can. Sports, Randolph-Macon is just, a great place to be on a team. Now, I was a swimmer at Longwood, and I wish that they did not have a swim team at Randolph-Macon at the time. Yeah, right. And I think that would have been a great thing for me to help me, make up my mind about staying if I had been a swimmer or participated in more sports. I was sports-minded. I loved my sports, and I had to go where I was most comfortable and happier.
I mean, you have such a unique relationship with the college. I mean, and I feel like our questions are very directed towards like a student who went there for 4 years, and actually most of the people we have talked to went there for 4 years and then completely dropped off the planet so far as their contact with the college is concerned. But I mean, you're in a very different. I feel like these questions aren't touching on your relationship with the college. I mean, how do you feel about the school?
I'm so proud of it. It's the way it's growing, the campus, the look of the campus. They're going ahead with so many different projects. I believe the pre-med program, trying to strengthen that. I think that's great for the college. It's really putting Randolph-Macon on the map. And aside from the cost, I mean, it's a perfect place for just about anybody. And I know that a lot of the financial aid is out there for a lot of students, and it's all good. So, and being close to Richmond, it's just a great fit. It was a great fit for my boys. And I think if things had been a little bit different and 40 years ago, I might have been a graduate of Randolph-Macon.
Times were different, though.
Yeah, times were different. So.
I mean, is there anything else that you feel like we haven't talked about that you would like to have on record, or that you feel like is an important part of your experience?
Well, when I was at Randolph-Macon also, the Vietnam War was going on. I didn't see a lot of it, but I know my former husband said that he had a lot of friends that were attending Randolph-Macon, and they were there one day, and they must have gotten their draft notice, and they were gone. They were, and it was, a crazy time. And it was bell bottoms and tie dye and long hair. And I don't know if you've ever looked through a jacket, a yellow jacket yearbook. It's just crazy. So
More relaxed.
it was. And you look at some of the pictures and you think, oh no, oh no, was I really looked like that or acted like that? So it was a different time, but it was all good. I have fond memories of Randolph-Macon, and I think that's the bottom line. So.
Great. All right. Well, thanks for your help and for your time.
Thank you for coming. Nice
All right.
meeting you.
See you too.
Did we touch on